Hey guys, this is Alex Serpentine back with my last video in my Dragons or Obstacles series from the Michael Teachings. So I made 7 videos. I'm making 7 videos about each of the dragons or obstacles. And this one is about stubbornness. So all these different dragons that I'm talking about are presented in Jose Stevens' book, Transforming Your Dragons: How to Turn Fear Patterns into Personal Power. It goes into much greater detail on these patterns, how they develop, and how you can overcome them. But I'm going to be doing an outline about the basic things, the most important information to really uh, to learn and understand. If you haven't heard about these before, they're talked about in the Michael teachings, and but you can get a chart channel that shows you what your dragons are, your obstacles, or you can just read this book. There's a section, there's exercises that to do that um, help you find out which dragons you have operating in you, and usually we have 2 of them. So definitely check out this book to learn more. So the definition of stubbornness: it's a fear of authority and sudden change, or being forced to adapt in ways that threaten one's sense of stability or control. It's a fear pattern expressed in rebelliousness, rigidity, obstinacy, argumentativeness, hard headed behavior, refusal to listen, and refusal to submit. They try to slow down events to buy time. As children, they were given no options and were forced to do what they were told. So, stubbornness is basically being like holding still and like holding your ground and not budging from where you're at. And there's usually a fear of authority kind of oppressing you in some ways. Like that could happen through your parents initially, but then anybody who's seen as an authority is seems threatening to you, and you basically have to hold. You feel like you have to hold strong in your the way that you want to live, the way you want to be, and so it's very rigid. So that's the definition there. So in the Michael teachings, for each of the different obstacles, there's a positive pole and a negative pole. The positive pole is the best manifestation of this pattern. If you were to heal this pattern, this is how it would look in the positive pole. And then the negative pole is the worst manifestation of it. So for stubbornness, the positive pole is determination. It's a firm resolve to stick to one's principles or goals, demonstrating resilience and perseverance. In the negative pole, it's obstinacy, an inflexible refusal to change or adapt, often leading to unnecessary resistance or conflict. The external manifestation of stubbornness is unyielding, contrary, unbending, set in one's ways, pig-headed, hard-shelled, headstrong, uncooperative, unpersuadable, mule-headed, immovable, and ungovernable. The internal manifestation is inflexible, tenacious, relentless, willful, fixed, stuck, perverse, and hardcore. So in Jose Stevens' book, he outlines the 7 steps of development, which stem from what happens in childhood and how this pattern takes hold of you. So step 1 is the children are subjected to sudden changes without adequate warning or preparation. So basically, you could be like your parents or say like, "Hey, we're going to go to this place," and they don't tell you beforehand, so you can't expect it. So it makes you really afraid of change or sudden change, especially. Step 2, the children are not allowed to make personal choices. The children are excluded from family choices. The children grow resentful and fear the loss of integrity. The children learn to resist all forms of external control. The older children lose the ability to distinguish between force and suggestion. That's a big part of it too. Like if you're talking to somebody who has the stubbornness pattern, if you're suggesting something, they might feel like you're trying to control them. So, or be forced. They can't tell the difference between being forceful with them or just suggesting things. They might perceive them as the same kind of thing. And step 7 is that the children internalize the struggle and resist themselves. So for these 7 steps of development, there's a section in each that Jose Stevens outlines as the belief and decision, which are just different quotes that you can look at that describe what kind of beliefs you take on at these different steps. So step 1, change is frightening and a threat to my survival. I need to resist it. Step 2, I am being robbed of my power over my body by those in authority. I am not allowed to have my own self. Authority is bad. Step 3, I have no power. I have no influence over the environment. I'm always being forced and controlled. Step 4, resist authority at all costs in order to preserve integrity. Step 5, I can't back down whatever happens. I can never give in or I'll die. Anything that even remotely looks like I'm being told what to do is bad. I must instantly rebel or say no. Now that I've made my decision, I'll have to stick with it, right or wrong. So there's stages of maturity that Jose Stevens talks about in each of the chapters for the different dragons. And they're basically outlining the soul ages from the Michael teachings. So if you don't know what the soul ages are, I have a video about soul ages that you can go watch. But they're basically developmental stages that we go through in our reincarnational cycle where we're learning different lessons. And in the earlier soul ages, we're not as aware of these patterns, but they have a stronger hold on us. But as we mature and go to the later soul ages, we become more and more aware of these patterns. So at the infant soul stage, Jose Stevens called this autism and catatonia, displaying extreme rigidity and withdrawal from interaction. The baby soul stage, skinheads and reactionaries, the far right, are examples of this, holding fiercely to reactionary and extremist beliefs. Young soul stage, it's the good old boys, the mafia, maintaining loyalty to traditional or criminal codes and resisting change. Mature soul stage, radical leftists and rebels, adopting inflexible revolutionary ideas and opposing the status quo. At the old soul stage, it's self-defeat, internal rigidity, persistently clinging to outdated beliefs and practices to one's own detriment. So there's a couple examples that I remember from reading from the book about stubbornness. Is like if you're in a group of people, like I think it was like in prison or something. It's an example of a guy who refuses to stand up when the leader of the group says to stand up. He just stays sitting, and when he tells everybody to sit down, he stands up. So they kind of just go against and do the opposite of whatever they're told. So that was an interesting example. There's more examples in the book. So there's affirmations that Jose Stevens outlines that you can pay attention to and learn from if you say these things to yourself, if you notice that you have the stubbornness pattern. I'm an excellent listener. I always take advantage of the opportunities that change brings into my life, even the ones that are painful. I always admit when I'm wrong, which is often. I enjoy implementing suggestions and advice. I am secure in the knowledge that I can count on knowing what to do. I learn a lot from my failures. I have the courage to admit when I'm wrong. I am learning the art of compromise. It is smart to listen to other people at times. I like to do new and interesting things. When I say yes to others, I learn a great deal. He also outlines 7 weapons to slay the stubbornness dragon. Weapon 1 is to learn to be flexible. Weapon 2, learn to say yes. Express yourself openly. Listen with an open mind. Come to terms with authority. Embrace change. And admit your mistakes and accept failure. He also has 7 exercises that you can do to slay the stubbornness dragon. Exercise 1, identify your worst nightmare scenario. So that's dealing with the fear of change and authority oppressing you, basically. It would be highlighting what those nightmares those fears are, because this is a pattern of fear. Even though stubbornness kind of seems like it's a good, like a strong thing, it's stemming from fear. So to highlight what your fears are can help overcome this. Identify rigidity in your body. So there's actually effect on your body when you have the stubbornness dragon. You just kind of like dig your heels in, and you're very rigid. Usually there's a rigidity in the jaw too, and in your legs. Exercise 3, learn to listen. Exercise 4, follow the leader. So when you're in a position where somebody else is leading something, it's good to be open to what they're saying and not just be rigid and resisting them and being stubborn. Exercise 5, admit error. Exercise 6, learn to be fluid. So fluidity is kind of like a response to the rigidity, basically. And exercise 7 is to let go of structures and set patterns. So that's it for the stubbornness dragon. So I've done all the different dragons from this book, Jose Stevens' book, Transforming Your Dragons, How to Turn Fear Patterns into Personal Power. This is an outline of the main things to pay attention to. But if you really want to learn more, I would definitely recommend reading this book. Knowing about these dragons really makes a big difference, because once you know them, you can see them in yourself and in other people and in the world in general. And learning how to overcome these things can really improve your life in big ways, because they're really obstacles. They prevent you from living life fully in the most fulfilling way. So I definitely recommend reading this book, and everything I presented in these series of videos is basically presented in this book. So that's it. That's all I wanted to share on this one. If you like this, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in a future video.